Welcome to my Sticky Note Quickie episode from this week's Blender Business Show. I'm your host, Producer Jaime. This week, our episodes are brought to you by Flintstone Media. And we'll get to my Sticky Note in just a moment, but first, here's our clip of the week pulled from our full episode titled Common Content Creation Pain Points with Paul Eza from Acorn Comics.
So besides just doing those two small conventions, I've got one more coming up in November. You just try and be as active as possible on social media. That seems to be the number one thing that people who have succeeded in this space will tell you, is you just have to be kind of relentless and don't worry about being annoying. It's not something I've been good at or consistent with. There's certainly people who are better at it than I am. So that's one step. I do have a newsletter that I've started that is a monthly newsletter through the website acorncomics.com. People can sign up there, or when we run the Kickstarter campaigns, there's always a question at the end when they send out the survey: would you like to be added to our list? Would you like to be added to the newsletter? And usually I put an option of yes/already subscribed, because a lot of times people may not know, but it's not going to let me put in duplicate emails. You're not going to get too...
So welcome to my Sticky Note Quickie for this week's Blender Business Show. Let's talk specifically about finding the time to create content, because I believe if you can crack that egg, then you'll create content consistently enough and well enough to begin making an impact on your business's growth, increase sales, and then be able to flip some of those additional dollars into better content. Hire a team that can increase your quality, better target your right audience, and dare I say, even be able to create separate content funnels for different points in your sales cycle? Yes, please. So let's crack that pain point of time. At least let me tell you how I have managed to get better at it. It boils down to two main efforts. Number one, sequestering time for creating promotional content. And number two, putting up guardrails to protect that sequestered time from distractions. So, number one, sequestering time for creating promotional content. On Fridays, I have a 4-hour block of time dedicated to content creation. Full stop. It's blocked off on my calendar, and I typically have created a running list over the course of the week of content ideas for me to tackle. And that brings us to number two, which is a little more complicated. Putting up guardrails to protect that sequestered time from distractions. I'm a mom of a 13-year-old kid named Jordan, who you will meet in next week's bonus episode as a reminder. And I have my business, which includes both team members and clients who all reach out to me for one thing or another. Plus, I have other people in my life who I adore and want to spend time with, such as my partner Patrick and my best friend Viviana. So life is definitely a delicate balancing act already. And one of the best favors I ever did for myself to create an impact on my productivity generally was utilizing a scheduler tied to my calendar. You may have heard of a very popular software in this space called Calendly. I happen to use a different one called Schedule Once, but all of these kinds of softwares work essentially the same. They connect to your calendar, you set up certain rules for your availability, and when you need to offer a meeting time to somebody, you simply send them your calendar link, and then they can pick whatever day and time works for them within your pre-established parameters. And that's the key. You can set up the parameters, i.e., boundaries on your availability. And that leads me to the second best favor I ever did for myself to impact my productivity. I recognize that my Mondays are super busy, packed with podcast production tasks for me to handle. Not necessarily editing, but overseeing the overall operations of our production queue. So a few years ago, I decided to block my Mondays from any calls or meetings being scheduled, period. Essentially, it's a day when I can completely buckle down and focus on the tasks at hand. That way, things that affect the core of my business don't bleed into the rest of my week, and I can continue to be as productive and distraction-free as possible for Tuesday through Friday as well. And that, of course, circles back to the first main effort towards finding time to create content, sequestering time for creating promotional content on Fridays, as that time is now protected from the potential of distraction. At least as much as it can be. And no, this is not a perfect system. Some things will still seep into my protected content creation time despite my best boundaries and efforts. Like this weekend, not only did I have a blown tire, but we also had a leaky pipe. So I've had to fit in car appointments and plumbing service appointments. It's been a hot mess. So things happen, right? But for the most part, it holds. And that's been so good for me and my content. I guess it really boils down to being intentional. One, being honest about how much time I have in my week to dedicate to the full cycle of my business, which has to include time to promote it. Both my podcast production house, Flintstone Media, and this show, The Blender Business Show. Then, two, deciding I need to spend X amount of time on my content to achieve my goals for it. And three, both setting aside that time and protecting that time. And in my research for today's sticky note, I also came across an article from Column 5 titled, How to Fix the 10 Most Common Content Creation Mistakes. And I found its list to be super illuminating. It talks about common content creation mistakes, such as creating what you want, not what people need, and also forgetting your brand. So I'm including the link to that article in the show notes for you, of course. And once again, just another quick reminder, be sure to catch our bonus episode for you next week that features Paul being interviewed by my son, Jordan. What's so great about that interview is that not only do you hear them geek out about comic books, but Paul's story about turning something he loved in his childhood into a dream for his adulthood is pretty inspiring. It's a great story for any fellow entrepreneur turning a dream into a reality. Here's a quick clip.
Explain to me, what is Heroes and Zeros? What is this comic book that I'm holding in my hands right now?
All right, so Heroes and Zeros is the very first comic book I ever wrote. Mm-hmm. This was the one that when I decided I want to do this, I want to write comic books. This is the first story I developed and started typing out. The kind of log line for it is X-Men meets Scooby-Doo in the future.
Yeah.
And so I think now you've read it, you probably can see some of those elements. Like you've got, people have evolved to develop superpowers, except now most people have superpowers. The Zeros from the title are the ones who are in this future that don't have any powers. And so then we get into the Scooby-Doo element, which is that it is a murder mystery focused on 3 Zeros who are trying to solve the murder of the most powerful man in the world.
This week, our episodes are brought to you by Flintstone Media. Be sure to catch the full episode with my entire guest conversation on the main show feed. Just look up Blender Business Show on your favorite podcast player. And if you're a business owner, marketing manager, or content creator, join in the conversation with other Blender members on our Slack channel, which you can find the link for along with everything else at blenderbizshow.com. We are the Blender community, where business and media mix.